Okay, now we're going to make the arms and the fingers are crocheted right onto the arm, and there's no need to worry. I'm going to walk you through each and every one of those fingers. But first we're going to make the arm, and we start at the top of the arm, which is this area right here, and then we work our way that way. And we make a ring with 6 stitches, and again, if you need slower help with the ring, please visit those 2 videos linked in the description box below, and I have 2 different methods that will walk you through getting the ring. I of course like the magic ring, the one I keep doing here over and over. Hold that yarn tail with my pinky and my thumb, and the working yarn with my pinky and my thumb. I'm going to go through there, yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through, and that makes the slip knot. Now I'm going to make 6 stitches inside this ring. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if that was too fast, then please visit one of those videos down below. I go super slow through both of those videos. So there's my ring with 6 stitches. Row 2 is 1 single crochet in the first, 1 single crochet in the second, then 2 single crochets into the 3rd stitch, and then I repeat that one more time, 1, 1, 2. And we'll do that together. Remember when you're going through that you're going through both loops of your stitch. Go through, yarn over and pull through. There's 1 single crochet in the first, 1 single crochet in the second, and then 2 single crochets into the 3rd. A little bit more difficult to work in these smaller rings for sure, so give yourself lots of time. There's no rush. And again, there's no need to crochet along with me. You could just watch what I'm doing and then pause the video and do it yourself. And then 1 in the next 2, and then 2 single crochets in the last stitch of the row. You can see it's folding up on itself. Don't worry about that. We will fix it when we're done. There's 1 in the first, 1 in the second, and 2 single crochets in the last stitch of the row. And that's the end of row 2, and now we have 8 stitches around, and you can see it is folding up on itself. So we're going to flip it right side. Just pull out your last stitch so you don't lose it. And then where that starting yarn tail is coming out of, we're going to push that inward. And we're going to leave that starting yarn tail just hanging as it is. We're not going to cut it up too short. We can cut it up shorter, but you don't want to ever cut a starting yarn tail up too short, otherwise it can eventually work itself free. And if there's a big hole here and you want to get rid of that hole, hold onto your piece and just pull in that yarn tail, and you can see that closes up that hole. We can add a marker if you want. I'm just going to count in my head as we go along. We're going to do this whole row together. So that was the end of row 2, and now we have 8 stitches around. Row 3 is 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then 2 single crochets into the 4th, and then we repeat that one more time. So let's do that together. 1 single crochet in the first, 1 single crochet in the second stitch, 1 single crochet in the 3rd, and 2 single crochets into the 4th stitch. And now we're going to repeat that sequence one more time. 1 single crochet in the first, 1 single crochet in the second, 1 single crochet into the 3rd, and 2 single crochets into the 4th stitch. And then we're finished row 3, and now we have 10 stitches around. And you can stop, of course, and count your stitches and make sure you have 10. And the first one to count is underneath this big loop. I'm just going to tuck this starting yarn tail inside so it's out of our way. Then you can see the stitches easier. and they look like a V, and there's 2 loops in that stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so that's the end of row 3, and we know we have 10 stitches around. We're ready to move on. Rows 4 through 16 is 1 single crochet at each one of those 10 stitches for 13 rows. And again, if you don't want to keep track of your rows, keep a little notepad beside you, and each time you finish a row, put a notch on your notepad. When we have 13 notches, we're going to meet back here. So you can add a stitch marker if you want, or you can count in your head as you're going along. And remember, if you lose track, you can always count your rings, and that'll tell you which row you're on, and count behind your last stitch that you just put in. 1 single crochet in each one of those 10 stitches for 13 rows. We'll meet back here at the end of row 16. There, I'm all finished row 16, and it's a good idea to do a stitch count if you're unsure. Make sure that you still have 10 stitches in there. Just added my marker. Row 17 is 2 single crochets in each one of those 10 stitches. So go ahead and put 2 single crochets in each one of those 10 stitches, and we'll meet back here when we land on the marker. When you land on the marker, you should be putting in 2 single crochets. Okay, we finished row 17, and now we have 20 stitches around. We're going to make 4 fingers, and we're going to use up 5 stitches per finger, but the finger is going to end up with 6 stitches, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. But first of all, let's stuff this arm before we start adding any fingers. You don't want to overstuff the arm, it just needs enough to keep its shape. And that's pretty much it right there. And here we can use a smaller hook if you want to. Sometimes it's hard to get into the stitches when you're working in small rounds, like these fingers are going to be small rounds. So some people find it harder to get through those small rounds with a larger hook. So this one is actually a 3.75, it's quite a bit smaller. And I'll use this to crochet the fingers from here on out. And we're going to go into the 5th stitch from behind the hook for the first finger. So we count the stitches behind the hook. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to go through that 5th one. So just go right through. And then yarn over and pull the yarn through. And then single crochet. Now we're going to go back into that same stitch that we just went through. It looks a little bit wonky there. We've already put a single crochet into there. Now we're going to go back in, and that first one is a little bit wonky, like I said, because we went across. Put another single crochet, and there, now we have 6 stitches around. So I don't usually count the rows, I usually just go by eyeing it up, but we can definitely count how many rows we put in here. You can make the fingers as long as you want, you can make them as short as you want, it's all up to you. So when you look in here, this ring now is pretty small, and it's going to be difficult for you if you're not used to crochet to see all those stitches. So just pull back so you can see the first stitch there. And there's 1. Going to the next stitch. There's 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. So I make this look pretty easy, and I totally understand how frustrating it can be to do fingers. When I first learned how to do fingers, I had a very difficult time. I actually dreaded making them. They felt like work to me, and I got kind of tired after trying to make them. So if you feel like that, give yourself a huge break and don't give yourself a hard time. It gets easier with every set of fingers you make. It gets easier. Believe me, it really does. It's difficult when you're first learning how to crochet to work in these smaller rounds. All it is just making sure you're going through a stitch, and make sure you have 2 loops of that stitch on top of your hook. You want to make sure you're going through both loops of your stitch, and if you can't see them, pull your crochet hook back and look for the V, and then just go through the V. So there was 1 row. I'll put 2 more rows in, and I'll count out in my head. So putting a stitch marker in there would be kind of hard to do. So we'll just count out in our head. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there was 2 rows. You can see the finger is getting longer, and I'll put 1 more row in there. Remember, you can make it longer if you want to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there, I think that length there is fine for me. You can go longer if you want to. You can put a couple more rows in there if you want to. I'm going to stop here. You can see on top of the finger is open, and we need to close that up, and we're going to do that using a slip stitch. So I'm just going to go across. Sometimes one will do it, sometimes I need to. And pull the yarn through, and then pull it through again. And that closed up the finger on the top. There's a little gap here. We can put another one if we want to. You don't have to. I think it was closed up fine the way it was. But I will show you what to do if you still see a hole there. So just go through another stitch, pull the yarn through, pull the yarn through. Now we finish off. You want to leave a tail long enough to sew any gaps that you see, and also we're going to be bringing the yarn tail into the arm after, so it needs to be long enough to do that. So pull it tight, and there's our first finger. Okay, now we're going to do the second finger, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just popping in to tell you what happened, because you might notice, for those of you who with a good eye for errors, before I finished filming the second finger, you'll notice that there wasn't enough stitches here to do 2 more fingers. And what happened was, before I started filming the first finger, I had pulled out stitches and didn't realize it. So I didn't have 20 stitches when I started. So everything I show you is correct in putting in the second finger, but you might notice that this hole here is quite a bit smaller than it looks right now. So after I finished filming, I had to pull it all out and add in those missing stitches that I didn't realize I had pulled out. Okay, now we're ready to put in our second finger. In this one we're going to use up 5 stitches again, and we're going to end up with 6 stitches when we're done the first row. So we're going to go through the corner of the first finger, just right through the corner, and we'll use the next 2 stitches in front of the hook, and then across we'll use those 3 stitches there, and that'll make up 5. So we're just going to lay our yarn over the hook, just lay it over and pull it through. And you want to hold this yarn tail here in the back so it doesn't break free. Put a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. Now we're going to crochet across, and we're going to crochet into the 3rd stitch from the corner. You can count the V's there. 1, 2, 3. Push your hook through the 3rd stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, and single crochet. Now we're going to go back in that same stitch we were just in, just like we did for the first finger, and put another single crochet, and that adds a stitch to our row. Now we can crochet the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Now we're going to crochet across the first stitch we put in there, single crochet across. Now we have 6 stitches around. We're going to do our next row, and our first stitch is a little bit, it looks a little bit wonky. It's kind of buried. Just make sure you get through it and you don't skip over it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you can see that there's a gap in between the fingers. We're going to close that up after we're done here. We'll put another row in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now it looks a little bit shorter than that one, so I can just put another couple of stitches in to even it up with the finger beside it. That looks about right. So now we'll slip stitch across to close up that finger. And if there's a gap, just put another slip stitch across. Finish off. Remember to leave a bit of a tail that you can use to sew the gap between the finger with. Pull it tight. And there's our second finger. Now we can carry this yarn tail down through the finger and out through the hand somewhere. Now go back in, and you see this gap, we can close that up with this yarn tail. Just bring your needle up near that gap, pull the yarn tail through, and just sew that gap closed. There we go. Now I'll just bring this down. And this one, we can bury this into the arm. Okay, ready to start the third finger now. And again, we're going to go right through the corner. It's not the stitch, it's actually just the corner of the finger. Pretty much repeating the steps of the last finger. Pull your yarn through. Hang on to that in the back so it doesn't pull free. And put a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and now single crochet across into the third stitch from the corner of this finger. And you can count the V's. 1, 2, 3. Single crochet into that stitch. Going back in that same stitch you were just in and put another single crochet. Now single crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. And then single crochet across into that first stitch you put in. Now we're ready for the second row. 1 single crochet in the next 6 stitches. So now I will put one more in there. I'll slip stitch across to close up the top of the finger. Just going through a stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through, pull through. I'll do another one right here. Pull through, pull through. And if the finger is too long, I've done this before, where the finger looks a little bit too long, not to panic. When you pull this yarn tail down into here, just give it a tug and it'll shrink up that finger a little bit. Okay, and now this a little bit short for me to get my yarn needle in there, so I'll just shove the back end of the yarn needle up and through the finger, and then I'll thread it through there. Now I can pull it down. pull on it slightly and cut. I'll use this one to sew up any gaps that I find. There's a little tiny one there. So I'll go down through the finger and out through the hand. See, that finger was a little bit too long. If I pull on it, pull on this yarn tail, it shrinks up that finger a little bit. So yarn is pretty adjustable. You can shape it and manipulate the yarn quite a bit. Ready for the last finger now. We're almost done. Going through the corner. First of all, let's count our stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm just going to go into the corner there. Pull my yarn through. And single crochet in the next 5 stitches. That's 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to put 2 across. Single crochet across like I did for the other fingers. There's 1. And then going back in the same stitch again and put another one. So there's 6. So it's a little bit bunched up, so just make sure you pull back. You can see the first stitch of the row right there. And count to 6. 1. I think I can stop right there. I'll slip stitch across. And again right there. Slip stitch across. And we are done. This one I'm going to cut a longer yarn tail because I'm going to bring it out to the end. I'm going to use that yarn tail to sew the arm to the body. So pull that tight. And then we'll thread this yarn tail. That's what I did with this one here. I brought it to the inside of the arm and I knotted it off there, and I'm going to use that to sew it to the body. So there's not much of a gap there, but I will still sew up what I can. So if the fingers are flaring out and they look weird to you, you can also run a string of yarn through all 4 of the fingers and kind of pull them together that way. I've done that myself. I'm just going through the very bottom of the fingers, at the very, very bottom, pulling the yarn through, and that just kind of sucks them together. If you pull on this, you can see it pull them together. I can pull them apart and show you again. So you can shape the hand that way, so they're just not flaring apart so much. Then you could bring this yarn tail down to the end of the arm like I had said. So I'll bring this to the inside, and I'm just going to knot it off right there, going through the stitch, and before pulling that all the way, I will go through that loop. You can see it fell through there, so I'm just going to go through that loop and pull it tight, and that just knotted it off. Now I can use this yarn tail to sew the arms to the body.